Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. Today I want to talk about the idea that we may well be entering the age of the mastering engineer as the celebrity. Not your big Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Tom Brady celebrities, but a kind of celebrity nevertheless, and I find it an interesting phenomenon. Now, mastering engineers, for those who aren't audiophiles or into audio engineering, these are the people whose job it is to make the music sound good, to make the musical recordings sound good. Because when a master tape that's typically two channels comes out of the studio, it isn't necessarily ready to go. Now, some are engineered so well that they're just perfect. Flat transfer it to a CD, do minimal, or a tape, do minimal corrections to make sure that it sounds good on the more complex vinyl medium, and you're good to go. But you would be surprised, really surprised, at how many master tapes come out of the studio that aren't ready to go. If you press play and say, right, there's a bit that where's the bass? Well, they might have been monitoring it on a very bass heavy system and therefore artificially lowered the bass. Or this is too tinny and trebly. Or the tracks are uneven. Track one is louder than track five, and track one has too much treble, and track six has too much mid range. All these sorts of weird problems that come into it. And the mastering engineer is there to guarantee a relatively uniform, good sounding record that comes out, whether they're transferring it to a digital format, whether they're copying it to a tape format, like reel to reel, quarter inch for the home, increasingly, well, that's been rare for a long time, or cutting the vinyl LP, which is probably the most complex job of the many complex thing mastering engineers do. Now, why is this the golden age of the mastering engineer as a celebrity? Well, I think maybe because rarity makes things interesting. And a lot of the new music today it's not very dynamic. And it's all really created, much of it within a computer, with even the vocals being heavily processed and quantized and computerized. And so when we see remasterings of legacy albums, whether jazz or classical or rock or country and western or funk and soul or pop vocal, any of these genres that have been typified by real musicians playing real instruments and singing without modifications into a real microphone, we want these albums to sound good, especially in the collector community or the audiophile community. And because of that, we rely on mastering engineers to make these albums sound better than they've ever been before. Um, you know, and so that's one of the reasons. The other reason, I think, is because of the MoFi scandal from a few years ago. Now, I don't think it was much of a scandal. They should have been more honest about it, but they were, of course, using a digital intermediary to go between the master tape and the LP, and a lot of people didn't like that. So, what this led to is really, for the first time ever, analog records codes. The SPARS code is what, in the early days of the compact disc, would tell you whether the master multi-track, whether the multi-track was analog or digital, whether the master was multi-track or digital, and then the final product, which of course, being a compact disc, was always digital. So you'll see things like AAD, analog digital, DDD, digital all the way. Some you'll have ADD or AD. You know, it's alphabet soup here, but you know what I mean. And so that scandal with MoFi led to most of the audiophile labels and even some of the mid-tier labels having analog SPARS codes, which tells us the provenance of the master tape, how it was mastered, and most importantly for many, who mastered it, because the quality of the mastering engineer's brain and soul is really super important. It's the difference between a good final product and a mediocre one, even if you're working on similar equipment. And so now in the record collecting and record listening community, you've got household names of mastering engineers who in some cases have been around for a while. You've got Bernie Grundman, you've got Chris Spellman, you've got Kevin Gray pictured behind me, you've got Ryan K. Smith, you've got Matthew Luthans, just to name a few of some of the most prominent. Steve Hoffman is still around, but he's retired, but he was obviously very well known as well, and through his audio forum, very much is. So I really think the combination of the lack of modern music made by real instruments, which are much more difficult to record than something that all comes out of a MacBook, So there's that. There's the resurgence in audiophile LPs, MoFi going stronger than ever now that that dispute's resolved, analog productions going strong, others as well. And we're seeing now that people are really curious. Oh, who mastered this record? And we saw it even recently with the Buckingham Nicks reissues. Chris Bellman did the 45 version, Kevin Gray did the 33 version, and people who were doing the A-B comparisons weren't even saying, oh, 33 versus 45. They were saying Bellman versus Gray, two people with a very different style. And I really like this because, back in the day, a lot of the mastering engineers didn't get the credit they deserved. Their names weren't necessarily published on the album. And so I think this is sort of vindication for the people who might not write the songs that make the whole world sing, but they make those songs sound good. So three cheers for the modern celebrity mastering engineers. Let me know, of course, what you think of this. And as always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.